What's up, everybody? There's a lot of talk online about Micro Four Thirds, Fuji, APS-C, full frame, all that. So I want to take a minute and just talk to you about my personal experiences here. So at home, in my studio, where I do a lot of product photography and things like that, I use Sony. Basically, exclusively at this point, I'm shooting with the A7R4 and a 24 millimeter G Master. And that in studio is perfect. I have a macro that we'll use for some product stuff, but effectively that, I'm just going to admit it right here, that is the most compatible system. It really does have the best image quality. It syncs with it's if you need it professionally in a studio, I really do think Sony is flat out the best choice right now. I used to shoot Canon before that, but I still think that's probably an equally good system. But I just want to establish in the beginning that while these are awesome cameras and I love them and I probably shoot more photographs on them, as like a physical camera system, the Sony really is better. However, if you're traveling around, let's be real, you don't really need that. For a long time, I was shooting Micro Four Thirds. I've had the original EM5, had the EM5 Mark II, had the EM1. This is the EM1 Mark II. I've still had this for like 8 years. And I probably would have stuck with Micro Four Thirds, but it got so freaking expensive. When I looked at the new replacement for this, I was looking at the OM1 Mark II, it's $2,500. And it's just not a $2,500 camera. I mean, it's an awesome camera. It's a weather sealed camera. If like really what you do is birding, or, you know, sports or things like that, things where you're really gonna be outside and have a ton of light, it's probably the best camera out there, but for the money. But as an everyday system, it's just too expensive. I mean, $2,500, and then when you start getting into like their better weather sealed primes, they're super expensive. So Micro Four Thirds is awesome, but it becomes a very expensive system. This is sort of my legacy. This is the last Micro Four Thirds camera and lens I still have. This is the 40 to 150, which I really do think is one of the best lenses out there for the size and the sharpness and the speed and everything. I mean, it's weather sealed. This is an incredible sort of take everywhere system, but it's frickin' big. And the truth is, it's really big. It got to the point that I couldn't really justify it. And the Micro Four Thirds lenses that are smaller, the primes, unless you're getting those f1.2 Pros, most of them aren't weather sealed. And the ones that are, it's expensive, okay? And it got really hard to justify it. I hadn't really looked at the products after they switched to the OM systems thing, but it became substantially more expensive. So as I was looking at upgrading this camera, because the truth is it is getting a little bit old, you know, the low light performance kind of does suck. The autofocus is really good for a lot of things, but it's not as good as modern systems. And, you know, if you can upgrade, you can. So I was looking, and when I priced this out, it really didn't make sense. And so I ended up buying, take that thing off, the XT5. And I've been using this as my sort of travel camera. But the funny thing is, when I came down to coming down, we're in Costa Rica right now, I brought this along too, because I figured, you know, for wildlife and things like that, this really is just a better system. But I want to talk about this because the truth is, this is really what I'm shooting a ton with right now. And it says the, what's this, the 23 or the 35 millimeter equivalent f2 lens on the XT5. And I'm just gonna tell you as a basic thing, the XT5 with the f2 weather sealed prime, I think is a better bet than the Olympus with a weather sealed prime. I think it's actually cheaper. The low light performance isn't like, you know, break everything. It's the most important thing in the world, but it's noticeably better on this than on this. I mean, the sensor is newer, it's just better. And it's nice to have 40 megapixels, right? Because then I can make my 35 millimeter sort of into like a 50 by cropping in if I need to. Not exactly, but sort of. So I've been carrying this around with me most of the time now. And the crazy thing is once you put like one of their big f1.2 lenses on this, which is one of the few weather sealed ones, weather sealed primes, they're basically the same size camera. So it got really hard for me to justify putting more money into this older system where I felt like it just wasn't worth it anymore. So I just like, if you're if you have legacy Micro Four Thirds gear, like I'm not going to get rid of this. It works perfectly. It's awesome. But I would never pay retail for it right now. It just doesn't make sense. This has been great for me, but let's be honest too. The autofocus on this is nowhere near as good as my Sony's. I mean, it really, really isn't. There's no real doing action photography with this. Even like, when my kids are running around and being crazy, it misses focus. So if I had to guess, right, outside in bright sunlight, this probably hits more, the Olympus probably hits more in focus frames, especially with subjects moving towards the camera. This is probably the worst of the three. But once you go inside, it changes completely. And I feel like the Olympus's autofocus inside is just, it starts to get frustrating sometimes, especially when you have modern systems. And this one, I feel like it still kind of does what you need it to do. It may not be as good as a Sony, but it's really about half the cost for this travel system, and it's smaller. The sensor is not as good, but it's almost as good. And the truth is with this is when you shoot in lower light, even though you got a 2.8 lens on here, you get a lot of color noise, and you can fix a lot of that in post if you want to, but like I don't want to be doing that for my vacation photos. Who wants to sit there post-processing your vacation photos? So the truth is, for an everyday secondary system, I really think these guys are awesome. The X-T5. It's the first time I've shot Fuji in a long time. I had an X-T30 a long time ago, and it felt like a toy. I was never really happy with it. It was flimsy. It wasn't weather sealed, which to me is really, really important for a camera that you're taking out of the studio. And this has really checked every box for me. I don't think I would ever buy the 40 to 150 lens for it, because the truth is this is not an action camera. It's not it's a great camera, but it's not a good hybrid camera. It's not good for video. And when you start putting bigger lenses on it, the hand grip here is actually a lot smaller than the hand grip here, right? So the truth is, if you're going to be shooting bigger lenses like this 40 to 150 that I have, I would never try to put that on the X-T5. I think like the XH2 has a much bigger grip if you want to stick with Fuji. But the truth is, if you really want like a high performance sports lens, I do think Micro Four Thirds is the winner. But it's not the most versatile system, right? It's the smallest system, but the low light performance and the focusing in low light, and granted this is an older, this is the EM1 Mark II, right? So this is a slightly older system, and I'm sure the autofocus has gotten better. How much better could it get though, right? I mean, is it really worth $2,500 for the new OM1 body? I couldn't get there, right? So I'm gonna probably keep this forever. I mean, this is an incredible, take it out, take pictures of your kids at their sports game, or take a nature walk down in Costa Rica, take photos of my brother and his kids surfing. Like this is really good for that. And you can put the tele extender on it, like the 1.4, and still get good. I rented the 2.0, and like the autofocus takes a big hit. It really does. I wasn't freaking out about the clarity. I mean, it definitely wasn't as sharp with the 2.0, but the autofocus made it useless, right? There's no point in having that much zoom if you can't freaking focus. So with the 1.4, this is also a really nice travel kit, but I rarely bring it because the whole point of this is that I never have to take anything off of it. I never have to change anything. And this with the teleconverter on it is a little bit too long for just an everyday lens. Like it's good for certain situations, but as a general thing, it's too much. Finally, I love you. Okay, the Fuji is pretty great. It doesn't feel as well made as the Olympus, but these f2 lenses are incredible. They're really, really incredible. And they're like, you can get them for like $300 on MPB, one of those sites. So I would definitely take a look at the system if you want to. I'm not a fanboy of either one. I have them all. I have Micro Four Thirds, I have APS-C, I have full frame, and I feel like each one is really good in its own right. These guys they're not, you can use it in a studio, but it's so much easier. The Sony is really made for that kind of work, right? It plugs right into your computer, it syncs up with everything. It's just a much easier workflow for me. But as a day-to-day walk-around lens, this is a fraction of the size. I feel like the image quality is really just as good. And it's a great little system for the money. OM Systems, what the fuck, guys? Come on. Produce some decent, weather-sealed, cheap, small primes and, reasonably priced bodies. And I love you guys. Bye-bye.